Welcome back to our channel, where we bring you the most explosive and heartbreaking updates from the world of daytime drama. Today is a truly shocking day as we unpack a catastrophic turn of events that will forever alter the landscape of the bold and the beautiful. The glistening shores of the French Riviera, typically a playground for the wealthy and a breathtaking canvas for romance, have suddenly transformed into a terrifying nightmare landscape for the Forrester family. What was supposed to be a triumphant European business trip mixed with a romantic getaway has devolved into a visceral tragedy of unfathomable proportions. The glamorous facade of Monaco has been shattered by a moment of brutal violence, exposing the dark, toxic underbelly of a family pushed to its absolute psychological breaking point. The escalating corporate and personal wars have finally culminated in a physical confrontation that will leave viewers entirely breathless and forever change the dynamic between the Forrester and Finnegan families. To truly understand the magnitude of this tragedy, we must first examine the suffocating pressure that has been mounting on Ridge Forrester. The Forrester patriarch arrived in Monaco already carrying the immense weight of a corporate empire under siege. With Hope Logan Spencer's shocking defection to Logan Creations and the subsequent launch of her highly successful rival line, Forrester Creations has been bleeding talent and clients. Ridge has been forced to watch helplessly as longtime European partners, including Louise Board and the prominent fragrance mogul Fanny Grayson, abandoned Forrester in favor of Katie Logan's rising fashion house. This relentless corporate humiliation created a simmering cauldron of stress, leaving Ridge's nerves frayed and his temper dangerously volatile. Compounding this professional disaster was the terrifying resurgence of Sheila Carter. Steffy Forrester Finnegan had flown to Monaco desperately, hoping for a peaceful reset, only to discover that her husband, John Finn Finnegan, had hidden a massive, unforgivable secret. Sheila had been on his commercial flight across the Atlantic. For Steffy, whose severe post-traumatic stress disorder is inextricably linked to Sheila's past murderous actions, this revelation was the ultimate betrayal. The horrifying realization that Finn had struck a desperate bargain with the devil, allowing the woman who once shot them both in a dark alley to stalk them to Europe, shattered Steffy's fragile sense of safety. In a furious, heartbreaking confrontation on the Monaco beach, Steffy threw her wedding ring at Finn and fled on the first commercial flight back to Los Angeles, leaving her marriage in ruins. When a frantic, guilt-ridden Finn crashed Ridge and Brooke's critical business meeting with a client named Chloe, it was the spark that ignited the powder keg. Chloe's immediate departure due to the interruption was the final nail in the coffin for Forrester's European business trip, but Ridge's volcanic explosion of anger was not truly about the lost client. It was about his daughter. Ridge unleashed a blistering paternal rage upon his son-in-law, blaming Finn entirely for allowing a dangerous psychopath to destroy Steffy's peace of mind once again. In Ridge's eyes, Finn was no longer a beloved family member. He was a reckless enabler whose naive belief in Sheila's redemption had directly endangered the life of the Forrester heiress. Consumed by panic and a desperate need to save his shattered marriage, Finn raced to the bustling Monaco airport, determined to board the next available commercial flight back to Los Angeles. His mind was a chaotic whirlwind of regret and determination. He needed to look Steffy in the eyes, to beg for her forgiveness, and to explain that he had not colluded with Sheila, but had merely been trapped in an impossible situation at 30,000 feet. Finn believed that if he could just get home, he could somehow repair the devastating damage he had caused. He was completely oblivious to the fact that his father-in-law was hot on his trail, fueled by a blinding, irrational fury that was rapidly spiraling out of control. Ridge pursued Finn to the airport terminal, his protective instincts having warped into a toxic, blinding rage. When Ridge spotted Finn rushing toward the departure gates, all reason evaporated. He did not see a desperate husband trying to fix a mistake. He saw the man who had repeatedly failed to protect his daughter from a known killer. The confrontation that ensued in the middle of the crowded international airport was explosive. Ridge cornered Finn, his voice echoing through the terminal as he launched a vicious verbal assault, accusing Finn of destroying Steffy's life and demanding that he stay away from her forever. Finn, defensive and overwhelmed, tried desperately to plead his case. He attempted to explain the impossible logistics of the flight, reiterating that he had demanded Sheila return home upon landing and that he had only kept the secret to preserve Steffy's peace of mind. But his words fell on deaf ears. Ridge was entirely deaf to logic, his mind clouded by the traumatic memories of almost losing his daughter to Sheila's bullets in the past. The more Finn tried to explain, the more Ridge's fury intensified, creating an unstoppable collision course between two desperate men. The psychological breaking point arrived with terrifying suddenness. Unable to contain the volcanic rage that had been simmering since Steffy's tearful departure, Ridge Forrester completely lost his grip on reality. In a moment of pure, unadulterated madness, the sophisticated fashion titan transformed into a brutal aggressor. Ridge pulled back his arm and unleashed a thunderous, devastating punch aimed directly at Finn's face. The sheer force of the unexpected blow was staggering, carrying the weight of a father's deepest fears and most profound anger. The physical impact of the strike threw Finn entirely off balance. His body was sent hurtling backward with terrifying momentum. Unable to catch himself, Finn crashed violently against the sharp, unforgiving metal edge of a nearby luggage cart. The sickening sound of the impact echoed sharply over the ambient noise of the bustling airport terminal, a horrifying crack that instantly froze the surrounding travelers in their tracks. It was a moment of shocking, visceral violence that shattered the civilized veneer of the European setting. Finn collapsed instantly, his lifeless body crumbling onto the polished airport floor. He was knocked unconscious the very second his head struck the metal edge. A deep, jagged wound had been torn open at his temple, and within mere moments, a horrifying pool of dark crimson blood began to spread rapidly across the pristine tiles. The profuse bleeding painted a gruesome, terrifying picture of tragedy. Finn lay completely motionless, his chest barely rising, as the severity of the traumatic brain injury became immediately and terrifyingly apparent. The immediate aftermath was a scene of absolute chaos and chilling horror. Screams erupted from nearby passengers as airport security and medical personnel scrambled frantically toward the bloody scene. The flashing lights of the terminal reflected off the growing pool of blood, creating a macabre spectacle. Paramedics rushed to stabilize Finn's neck and stem the profuse bleeding from his temple, their urgent shouts in French adding to the disorienting nightmare. Finn's life hung precariously in the balance, his unmoving form a stark testament to the devastating consequences of unchecked rage. For Ridge, the adrenaline that had fueled his violent outbursts evaporated in a single, heart-stopping instant, replaced by a cold, paralyzing shock. As the patriarch stared down at his own trembling hands and then at the motionless, bleeding form of the man his daughter loved, the horrifying reality of his actions crashed down upon him. He had crossed an unforgivable line. In his desperate, misguided attempt to protect Steffy from the violence of Sheila Carter, Ridge had become the very purveyor of violence himself. He had potentially just killed his own son-in-law. The legal ramifications of this brutal assault are unfathomably severe. Monaco is a principality with strict laws and zero tolerance for public violence. Ridge Forrester, a man accustomed to wealth, privilege, and immunity, now faces immediate and severe criminal jeopardy. He is no longer just a fashion CEO. He is a prime suspect in a grievous assault case on foreign soil. As local authorities move in to detain him, Ridge faces the terrifying prospect of international criminal charges, potential imprisonment, and the complete destruction of his legendary legacy. If Finn does not survive the catastrophic head injury, Ridge could be facing charges akin to manslaughter or attempted murder. Beyond the legal peril, this violent act has created an irreparable, catastrophic rift between the Forrester and Finnegan families. When word reaches Los Angeles, Lee Finnegan's wrath will be apocalyptic. As a fiercely protective mother and a brilliant medical professional, Lee will not hesitate to unleash hell upon the Forrester family for what Ridge has done to her beloved adoptive son. The fragile alliance that once existed between the two families has been permanently shattered, replaced by a bitter, hateful blood feud that will echo through generations. Lee will demand absolute justice, and she will not rest until Ridge Forrester pays for nearly taking her son's life. The tragic irony of this entire nightmare is currently unfolding back in Los Angeles, adding a layer of unbearable emotional complexity to the storyline. At the exact moment that Finn is bleeding out on a cold airport floor, fighting for his life because of his desperate desire to save his marriage, Steffy Forrester Finnegan is making a catastrophic mistake of her own. Traumatized by the events in Monaco and heavily intoxicated, a heartbroken Steffy has sought refuge in the Forrester Creations CEO office, where she is bonded with a grieving Carter Walton. In a moment of supreme vulnerability, Steffy and Carter have crossed the ultimate line, engaging in a passionate, steamy affair. Steffy is completely oblivious to the horrific tragedy that has just occurred across the globe. She is drowning her sorrows in alcohol and infidelity, believing her marriage is over because of a betrayed trust, entirely unaware that her husband's life is currently slipping away. When the devastating phone call inevitably comes, the psychological destruction of Steffy Forrester Finnegan will be absolute. The news that her father has brutally attacked her husband, leaving him clinging to life with a severe brain injury, will shatter her already fragile mental state into a million irreparable pieces. The crushing weight of the guilt that Steffy will experience is almost unimaginable. She will be forced to reconcile the horrifying reality that while Finn was literally dying trying to get back to her, she was in the arms of another man. The secret of her affair with Carter will become a toxic, suffocating burden, a dark stain on her conscience that she will never be able to wash away. If Finn survives, how can she ever look him in the eyes again? If he dies, how will she survive the knowledge that her final interaction with him was throwing her wedding ring in his face before betraying their vows? This storyline represents a masterful, tragic exploration of how the desperate desire to protect one's family can ultimately lead to its total destruction. Ridge Forrester's paternal love, warped by fear and past trauma, has transformed into a destructive force that has ruined multiple lives in a matter of seconds. The physical violence at the Monaco airport is a stark, horrifying manifestation of the emotional violence that has been tearing these families apart for months. There are no winners in this scenario, only broken people standing amidst the ruins of their own making. As we look toward the upcoming episodes, the stakes have never been higher. Viewers will be glued to their screens, waiting with bated breath to see if John Finnegan will survive this catastrophic traumatic brain injury. Will the brilliant doctors in Monaco be able to save his life, or will Steffy be left a widow, haunted by her own infidelity and her father's monstrous act? The legal battle awaiting Ridge Forrester will undoubtedly be a central focus as the mighty patriarch is finally forced to face the severe consequences of his unchecked arrogance and rage. The landscape of the bold and the beautiful has been irrevocably altered, and the emotional fallout from this single, thunderous punch will reverberate for years to come.